Sorry about that. I didn't see that it broke until 2 pages later. My bad. I don't know what's causing that. I've done a bunch of checks on network stability. Um, there's nothing I can figure out that won't require me to experiment with radically different hardware setups. And frankly, I can't do that right now. Um, sorry. So, yeah. Okay, there it is. We'll take it from the top of the most recent paragraph. I suppose the one thing I haven't done is tried running it in safe mode instead, but it's kind of twitchy when I've tried that before. Twitchy-er. Anyway, let's get back to it. Sorry. It's too bad because we're approaching the end of today's stream, but whatever. The two of them did not walk out onto the runway, but exited through the rear instead. The grassland outside was pale green. Facing them, only a quarter-mile away, was the edge of the primeval forest. Ray had heard that Fairy didn't have a formal land army because the forest was just too nasty. I can believe it, he thought. With a thunderous roar, 3 interceptors took off in formation for an air patrol mission. The lieutenant and the major walked until they were clear of the shadow cast by the building's enormous roof, then sat down on the grass. Fairy's version of grass was soft and pliant, and did not prickle at all. Sorry, I need to move this so I can actually see it. Yeah, I've checked the router logs, and it's not an issue with the router with the computer itself. It'll keep showing nothing's wrong, but the computer freezes. And it's I've tried a few tests to see if I've got failing hardware. None of them come up with any problems. Whatever. Um, and trust me, I want to get it on to getting. Here we go. Fairy's version of grass was soft and pliant, and did not prickle at all. The blades were a bluish green, with deep blue streaks in the center. When cut, it smelled like irises. The wind's delicious, Ray said, taking a deep breath. Nothing like the filtered air below. I like it out here in midday because you can't see the bloody road. I can't relax when that thing's there to weird me out. That's something I wouldn't expect you to say. Major Booker drew the large combat knife he carried at his hip from its sheath, studied the trailing edge of the boomerang in his hand, and began cautiously shaving it. Human instinct, he said, without stopping his whittling. Not accurate, but very rarely wrong. Ray urged him to try the boomerang out. Blowing the wood shavings off, the major stood up and threw it with a practiced hand. It sailed into the clear, nearly cloudless afternoon sky, making a faint whirring sound as it cut through the air. It's not coming back. The boomerang traced a large circular path, and then fell about 50 feet from them. Was it because of the wind? This doesn't even count as a wind, said the major as he went to retrieve the boomerang. I made one that always came back, no matter the wind conditions or how badly it flew. He sat back down and took his knife to the wood again, while Ray sprawled out at his side, looking up at the sky. Did it break? What? That perfect boomerang, the one you said you made. I broke it. Actually, I didn't make it to begin with. A computer did. I fed it the requirements and it executed thousands of simulations in a virtual airspace before spitting out the wing shape data. Then I input the data into a digitally controlled tooling machine and manufactured it. That was Unit 1. I take it from your tone that it didn't work out. The virtual airspace in the computer wasn't a close enough model to real airspace. Next, I got the idea of putting an accelerometer into the wing and then fed that data into a computer. It could do variable pitch and all sorts of things. The one I fitted with a leading edge flap control was the best. That was Unit 2.
And what about Unit 3? Asked Ray as he spit out a bitter stalk of grass he'd been chewing. Was that one perfect? The Major stopped whittling and pointed his knife at the scar on his cheek.
This was the result. The wound that sent me to Fairy. Ruined my good looks, too.
I didn't know that, Ray said, raising himself up on his elbows and peering at the Major's cheek. You got that scar from a boomerang?
It was fast. It pitched back at me from an angle I didn't expect, and I couldn't dodge it. Even though it had enough load resistance to give me a nasty clip, it still flew past me, made another turn, and came back again. I barely managed to catch it. I designed it to come back in a way that would make it easy to catch, but how it actually flew, it made that decision itself, based on the conditions at the moment. I never wanted to throw it again after that.
Did you put a rocket motor in it or something?
Nah, in the end it was just a boomerang, but I'd installed a super-layered single-chip artificial intelligence LSI into it. Since I could never get the feedback control to work, it was necessary to give it a control method to let it look ahead.
Predictive control, you mean?
Yeah, I threw the prototype boomerang again and again. Each time the LSI would judge the conditions, master them, search for the causes of failure, and gradually learn to accurately predict them and respond instantly. Since the learning function was coded into the circuitry of the AI unit's hardware, I didn't even have to teach it the basic process. I just ordered it to use all the data from its sensors to adjust its flight path so it would return to the launch point. That's it. I flew it for 6 months and eventually lost the ability to predict how it would fly. Just when I was thinking that it was getting kind of dangerous, wham! I got 3 stitches from it. The doctor was clumsy and it hurt like hell. I thought about suing the wanker for malpractice, but he's a doctor with the SAF, and since I'm technically a CO, I'd have to sue myself too.
Booker resheathed the knife and stretched. He got up, brushed bits of grass off his fatigues, and threw the boomerang. It flew level and then climbed steeply from about 60 feet away, tracing a large arc.
That's the real thing, the Major said. Machines are too stiff to fly naturally.
The wooden boomerang flew gracefully and landed lightly.
That's why I can't stand them.
Is that a warning, or are you being ironic? Ray asked. He had a hard time taking that statement seriously from a man whose livelihood was building and operating advanced mechatronics.
Take it however you want,
the Major answered in his usual offhand manner.
My likes and dislikes have nothing to do with you.
Ray was about to answer him, but figured that was a reasonable thing to say, and so just watched silently as Booker retrieved the boomerang. As he was about to lie back down on the ground, the remote in his breast pocket chirped. "This is Lieutenant Fukai. We're busy with Unit 3. The voice at the other end asked if he knew where Major Booker was. General Cooley was looking for him. "Major," he called, "Grandma Wrinkles wants you." Booker shrugged.
Is it too much to hope that it's news that the Japanese commandant dropped dead?
They say the review schedule's been finalized and that she wants to give it to you.
I won't die alone. Let's be chums and line up in front of the wall together. We'll take everyone here with us.
As the two of them rode down on the absurdly oversized elevator, Ray wondered about the Major's extraordinary dislike of machines. He was struggling to understand it. It wasn't a matter of how safe or dangerous they were, or how high they let you fly or didn't. It was a visceral aversion that Booker had somehow developed. As he turned this over in his mind, a vision of the honor guard standing stiff as toy soldiers suddenly came to him. "Say, Jack," after hesitating a moment, Ray voiced his thoughts. "What if we built some dolls?" Booker stopped the irritated tapping of the boomerang against his shoulder and tilted his head. "Androids," Ray explained. "Or robots, I mean. We can have them line up and salute. I doubt we'd even need AI units for them. The Commandant is nearsighted, right? So if we get the faces and skin texture down, there's no way he'd be able to tell from that distance. It'd work great, since he's the only one that would get anywhere near them anyway."
Oh, kid, don't be crazy.
"I bet you'd do it if it was your idea."
I'd have to be the one to call up the General and present that insane proposal. You think she'd say yes?
Booker flipped the boomerang over and continued.
Still, the idea's worth considering. It is absurd, but I think I know a way to make it work.
He turned to face Ray and adopted a pompous tone.
I hereby order you to make the proposal to the General and persuade her to do it.
Screw that, Ray replied. I'm no good with Super Granny.
I'll have you court-martialed for disobeying the orders of a superior officer, for mutiny, treason, and going AWOL.
Ah, get real. When did going AWOL come into this?
And insulting superior officer. Think about it, Ray. Which would you rather do? Try to persuade 120 squadron members, or one woman?
The woman would be harder. They had reached the maintenance level. Ray replaced the remote control on the wall.
There are women in the squadron, too. Look, you came up with the idea. I'm busy,
Booker said, walking quickly. You seriously want to do this?
I'll check how feasible it is back in me office. Go see the General in my place. It's just your good luck that I was ordered to be in charge here. Remember, you and I are coons from the same hole.
You mean badgers.
Oh, is that a real expression? Maybe rats would be better.
Ray had lost. He'd bought himself a mess of trouble that he didn't need. Feeling depressed, he headed for the SAF's command level. In the end, it was the selfish intransigence of the squadron's human members that propelled the machine-hating Major Booker into the task of building their mechanized replacements. The members of the other squadrons behaved similarly, but the ones in Boomerang took it to a new level. Although it was hardly surprising they did so. Using data on childhood backgrounds, environmental histories, and a variety of other personal profile statistics, the FAF command computers had broken everyone down into several personality types and then compiled a group that had the lowest scores on the sociability and cooperation indices. The result was the 5th Squadron of the SAF. It was General Cooley who had put it together. Does this sound vaguely familiar? I've read Starfish on this, have I not? The task of greeting VIP visitors should have been regarded as an honor, but the soldiers of Boomerang Squadron regarded it as an insult, mainly because none of them thought of their visitors as honored guests. And so, the consensus reaction was to show no courtesy at all. This didn't arise from any group discussion, but merely from one person telling another that they didn't want to do it, and the other person agreeing, and then telling another person, until by the end of the process it had become the general sentiment. Of course, Major Booker was a soldier in Boomerang Squadron as well, but his position and personality were different from those of the other members. He didn't want to be demoted, whereas the vast majority of the rest couldn't be busted any lower than they already were. Booker no longer held the bold, some might say nihilistic, worldview of those who lived constantly in the shadow of the fact that they might not return from their next sortie. He was a victor who had survived his environment. You needed to appreciate reality in order to win and live to see another day. If he had to put it into words, he would say that he was a man who knew what fear was. Ray understood the Major's position, but he now realized that there was a slight, or possibly significant, difference in how they saw things. In the end, Ray couldn't quite completely understand Booker's mentality. Ray was a soldier, and in any case, he wasn't nearly the veteran that the Major was. Despite everything, Ray was able to successfully make his difficult case to General Cooley. Booker greeted the news with a handshake and a "great job," saying that she never would have gone for it if he had been the one presenting the proposal. He said it was Ray's youthful zeal that had convinced her, and while their moods were buoyed, they set about analyzing how to turn their abstract idea into an actual success. Naturally, the General's condition for going along with the plan was that the dolls had to be well made. She had even told him that if the robots exceeded standards, they would be used for honor guard duty from now on. The whole thing had quickly grown bigger and hairier than Ray had thought it would.
Leave it to me, said Major Booker, spreading out his concept sketches. No worries. The project was already out of Ray's hands. It may have been his idea originally, but he had the sense that it was growing into an enormous monster that he couldn't control. They had 2 weeks to get it done. General Cooley talked. Oh, there we go. Did not expect that word order. General Cooley talked the Polymer Materials branch of the System Corps into promising to produce some synthetic skin on short notice. She even arranged to set up a direct data link between the Air Force factory production system and the computer in Booker's workroom, which allowed him to use the CAD-CAM system remotely. Using just the computer's graphical display and keyboard and a light pen, he could immediately direct parts to be made. Noting Booker's skill as he worked, Ray once again wondered why he had broken his perfect boomerang. To be honest, the Major seemed to be enjoying using the computer, enjoying it a lot more than shaving down wood with a knife. In the meantime, Ray acted as the pipeline between General Cooley and Major Booker, riding the automated monorail to the military manufacturing plant on errands, and being the punching bag for the bitching from the plant team, and helping to put the prototype together. He thought he would die of boredom. He wanted to be back in the air with Yukikaze as soon as possible. Each time he saw the general, he would ask her when the next hearing would be.
It seems they've been frustrated by the fact that they haven't been able to find any evidence to support their position. You may as well consider yourself a full lieutenant now. Congratulations, Lieutenant, she had said.
Every time after that, when he tried to get a more concrete answer out of her, she'd duck the question. Ray suspected she was working secretly with the authorities of their huge organization to destroy the evidence. The chances of that were slight, but if it were true, it would be convenient for Ray. The frame of the prototype doll was completed 5 days before the commandant of the Japanese Air Force was due to arrive. Ray went to report this to the general. Walking into the SAF deputy commander's spacious office, Ray saw a severed head sitting on the large desk and blanched in disgust. He knew it was a doll's head, but it looked very lifelike. On top of that, it had the face of his former electronic warfare officer, the one who had got himself killed. That's the height of bad taste, General.
Yes, Your Excellency. It's an honor, sir, said the head. Yes, Your Excellency. It's an honor, sir.
The general unfolded her hands and pressed the nape of the doll's neck to silence it.
I'm making our honored dead into our honor guard. Don't question my decision.
The body frames have some slight defects. I thought you'd want to know, Ray said, still standing. We'd planned to use stronger materials, but ended up having to use cheaper ones.
It can't be helped. For this batch, getting them ready in time has to take priority. Get them on the production line as soon as you can.
Roger that.
Wait. We'll be receiving the preliminary hearing's decision the day after tomorrow. I think you're going to be all right.
If they're saying that wasn't a sylph I shot down, then what?
If it wasn't a sylph, it was a bitch. It had to be a JAM. We'll have a short meeting about it tomorrow. Dismissed.
The military judge pronounced Ray clear of charges in the same conference room that the preliminary hearing had been held in.
We have found no physical evidence of misconduct by the accused.
I'm innocent, Ray said, standing. I want that made clear. The site where that plane was shot down must be in the combat record. If you'd investigated the wreckage, I'm sure you would have found it was a JAM unit. So what are you playing at?
If you are making any accusations against this court, we are more than ready to address them.
We have no objections,
General Cooley said smoothly, rising to get Ray under control.
The lieutenant is currently in an emotionally unstable state.
Lieutenant Fukai, if you would please sign here of your own will and volition, we can end these proceedings.
Although he wasn't satisfied, Ray decided he'd rather not deal with any more of this annoying bullshit and signed the document they handed him.
Court is adjourned,
the judge declared. Clung, clung. The general told him to come to her office, wherein she proceeded to chew him out for his behavior.
I told you to say as little as possible, and you go and say that to them? She paused in mid-rant. Coffee?
No, thanks.
I did tell you that, didn't I?
But, General, why didn't they make an on-site inspection? It's not that far away. If they found a piece, just one piece of that plane, it'd prove that I was innocent.
Shut up at once,
The general said in a tone of voice that was low but oddly charged with emotion.
It doesn't concern you, Lieutenant Fukai. As of today, you are a first lieutenant. You may go now and resume your current duties. Any questions?
None, he replied, and saluted. With 1 day to go before the big show, they had completed 326 dolls. The birth of ghost soldiers, all in uniform. The robots had been brought from the factory to the maintenance floor for a test run. Major Booker attached a wireless mic to his breast to transmit his commands. The Boomerang Squadron stood, or slouched, inside the glassed-in briefing room. Most of them regarded this strange corps without any expression, although some wore faint smiles. Ray walked along the standing ranks of the dolls, pushing the main power switch on the nape of their necks, and couldn't help shuddering at the coldness of their skin as he did so. "Salute!" the Major ordered. The dolls obeyed. This was met with applause, laughter, and catcalls. "Controlling these guys is kinda hard. Column right! Forward march! Boomerang Squadron, how about showing some gratitude for our replacements?" The dolls were taken up on the huge elevator to the surface, where they were bathed in sunlight for the first time. Ray came along as well. The dolls marched out toward the side of the receiving hangar at the base of the runway. And then one fell. Its arms and legs continued their marching motion even after it had fallen. The dolls coming up behind it began to fall as well. "No, no, no! Shit! All units halt!" Upon the Major's order, the chaos instantly ceased. Booker sighed and then sat down on a toolbox. "Looks like we'll have to cancel the march." Ray, who had watched all this without a word, let out a sigh as painful as the Major's. This world really is incomprehensible. "You say something." Ray shrugged his shoulders as he leaned against a power supply truck. "I'm talking about the hearing. I just don't get the General's attitude, and I don't get why she's on my ass all the time." "It may not have been a sylph or a jam. I saw the pictures taken by your gun camera too, and although it looked like a sylph, I can't say for sure if it was one or not." "What do you mean?" asked Ray, still brooding. "It's possible it could have been a trespasser from Earth, a unit that had entered the passageway in violation of international law." "Why would they do that? What could they possibly be after in this place?" "Look at this green land, this sweet air. If an Earth nation sent a spy plane, they couldn't exactly complain about it being shot down. If it became public knowledge, they'd have to face an international censure. On the other hand, Fairy isn't a sovereign state, so if we make some noise about shooting down a plane from Earth, it would cause big trouble for us as well. We don't know what the truth is. It probably was the jam. You should just forget about it." "I don't understand at all."
"Don't worry about it. Give me a hand here. We need to get these dummies back up again."
"Sure. The thing is, this scar on my forehead from shooting down that unknown hasn't gone away, and my partner is dead."
"How about this scar on my cheek? And everyone has to die sometime."
The FAF Meteorological Corps had forecast that the weather would worsen soon, but should hold out for the ceremony. The guest of honor came through the passageway and arrived at Fairy Base. The sudden change of environment was probably hard on his old body, but the Commandant was known for his love of pomp and circumstance, and wasn't about to let it get the better of him. Since Ray and Major Booker were in charge of preparations for the ceremony, they excused themselves from attendance and headed for the grassy field by the receiving hangar on the surface. Ray brought a portable broadcast monitor with him, while Booker carried his hobby boomerang. The grass was soft and the air was warm. If you excused the lack of a blue sky, it was as perfect holiday weather as you could ask for. After dozing off for a bit, Ray was awakened by the Major. "What?"
It's about to start. Turn on the monitor.
"What? Oh." Ray sat up. The ceremony was apparently being held in the plaza near the control tower, far away from the field they were sitting in. The runway was huge. As they turned on the monitor, a recording of a military band playing the FAF march blared from it.
Looks like the opening act has just finished. Okay then, now the review is starting.
The commandant of the Japanese Air Force walked out to the. Oh, that's Ray saying that. It doesn't matter. The commandant of the Japanese Air Force walked out to the ghost troops, accompanied by a single Ferry Air Force commissioned officer. He was a bantam of a man, walking with his chest puffed out, but did possess a certain dignity.
Okay, if this works, it all will have been worth it.
Jack, that officer.
Who else would do it? It's the least she could do. It's her responsibility, after all.
They heard voices now.
You're doing a fine job,
Said the commandant to one of the dolls.
Yes, Your Excellency.
It's an honor, sir, replied the soldier.
So, where are you from?
Yes, Your Excellency. It's an honor, sir.
White text was crawling along the bottom of the screen now.
This is a message from Ferry Air Force TV service, with an explanation from Boomerang Squadron. These dolls can only say, "Yes, Your Excellency, it's an honor, sir." This is a message from the Ferry Air Force TV service.
Who the hell did that?
Yelled Major Booker, leaning forward. But he soon relaxed.
Oh well, not my problem.
They cut to a close-up of the commander's grave face.
Truly remarkable, he said. Not a quiver from them.
This prompted a laugh from the major.
Present arms!
General Cooley called out. The robot soldiers raised their rifles and presented them, at which point there was a motion in the rear. The view switched to a wide shot. Both arms, still tightly holding a rifle, had fallen off of a doll. It looks like one of them was imperfectly adjusted. Fortunately, it wasn't in the front row. This is the FAF TV service. Damn right it's lucky, said Ray. Major Booker snorted a laugh.
What's that, General? What's that, General?
Asked the visitor.
Sir? Oh, that's one of our sylphids, which we're quite proud of,
said General Cooley nonchalantly as she led the commandant away from the dolls. There was the sound of aircraft overhead. Ray looked up at the sky to see 5 drones flying by in a 5-card formation. Please enjoy this high-quality flight by our target training drones. They feature a turboprop power source with variable pitch propellers. Naturally, they are all radio-controlled. This is the FAF TV service. With a completely straight face, General Cooley began to describe the various abilities of the real sylphid to their guest.
He said, I'd like a few of those planes for my Air Force, too.
The formation executed a perfect 5-card loop. Major Booker burst out laughing.
Why aren't you laughing, Ray? Look, even the General's smiling.
It's not funny.
You need more calcium in your diet.
Would you just stop? Ray suddenly snatched the boomerang from the Major's hands and stood up. Booker reflexively scrambled into a crouch, his knife out at the ready. But after a split second, he shook his head, looking embarrassed. He lowered the knife and straightened up, stretching out his back. The boomerang shook in Ray's hand. He was enraged. A boomerang is a weapon. It doesn't need to come back. He threw it at the monitor. It bounced off without breaking the screen. He sat down hard, arms clasping his knees as his whole body trembled.
Ray,
I feel like I'm as blind as that commandant. I mean, what the hell are the jam? We hit them and they still keep coming. Why don't they finish us off? What are we even doing here? Why are we...
You'll have plenty of time to think about that, Major Booker said as he picked up the boomerang and lovingly brushed it off. As long as you stay alive.
I've been on leave too long, said Ray. Way too long.
Ray returned to regular duty early the next morning. He entered the squadron briefing room wearing his flight suit. Prior to getting the details of the mission operation, he skimmed the general outline. Mission number, conditions for returning to base, Yukikaze's duties, comm frequency and channel, call sign, nav support, weather and visibility, onboard armaments. Once the meeting was over, it was time to complete the pre-flight preparations on Yukikaze. Wearing his G-suit and accompanied by his new EWO, he inspected Yukikaze's fuselage. They boarded and checked the ejection seats and the interior systems, then went down the rest of the seemingly endless checklist. After ascending the elevator to the surface, they carried out the final check of authority. Canopy down. Engine master switch on. Engine start. The engine revs climbed. Throttle open. Ignition. More checks to do as they idled. Adjustments made. Outside, it was raining.
Good luck!
Major Booker disconnected the comm jack from the plane's fuselage. Parking brake off. Ray taxied out onto the runway. As he released the brake, he pressed down on the foot throttle. In an instant, the engines hit max afterburner, and Yukikaze shot forward like a bullet. Nozzles full open. Takeoff. Up above was clear as always. The bloody road was bleached of color by the dawn light as Yukikaze rendezvoused with First Squadron. When the AWACS plane informed them of the enemy fighter position, First Squadron lit their afterburners and streaked off after their quarry. Yukikaze flew in a large circle at the edge of the combat airspace.
Enemy units,
The EWO warned.
bearing 10 o'clock. Low altitude, high speed and closing.
Ray set the radar to downlook mode and searched for them. There were 8 blips on the display, a formation of 8 planes. The computer scrolled out the enemy target data: speed, altitude, acceleration, approach vector, threat level.
They don't have any long-range missiles, said Ray. Should we attack? Prepare for air-to-air combat.
The EWO looked for signs of any electronic countermeasures or any counter-ECM activity, while Ray checked the store's control panel. Ready gun. Ready AAM-3-4. Ready AAM V-4. Ready AAM... Oh, sorry, that's a 5. AAM 5-4. Ready AAM 7-6. All anti-aircraft ordnance was loaded. That is a heavily armed plane, by the way. That is a lot. They're big planes, by the way. Like it's difficult to appreciate how physically large these models of Super Sylph are.
Enemy units are starting to climb,
Came the word from the back seat. An H-shaped mark appeared on the HUD.
Type 1's in firing range. Bandits number 8, range 250, head on and closing.
Unless that's the EWO. Doesn't matter. Too late. The pulse Doppler radar acquired the fast-moving JAM. JAM. Ray looked outside. The planes weren't in visual range yet. He pushed the missile release button on the side stick, signaling the fire control computer that it was free to attack. The FCC made its judgment and released all 6 long-range missiles at once. A vibration shuddered through the airframe, and then thin vapor trails stretched out toward the enemy Ray could not see. A fairy can see them, though, he thought suddenly. The numbers on the HUD were rapidly running down. Missiles would arrive in 3, 2, 1, 0.
Direct hits 4, unclear 2. Three enemy units closing at high speed. They're breaking into two groups and preparing to attack.
Sensing the radar waves of enemy missile guidance, the warning receiver trilled an alert. Yukikaze jettisoned its external fuel tanks. And that is the end of chapter 1, or part 1, rather. Um, and that is where we will leave it for this week. There was another school shooting in Madison, Wisconsin. Great. Just fantastic. To quote The Onion, horrible tragedy that could never have been foreseen or avoided. In the only place in the world where it happens consistently and regularly. I mangled that. It doesn't matter. The school shooting is awful, obviously. That is terrible. I wish I could say it was shocking, but we live in the world we live in, and nothing's been done to mitigate, ameliorate, or otherwise change uh, any of the conditions that enable that to continue occurring. So here we are. Um, Honestly, too frustrated and depressed about it to have much more than that at this very moment. Catching me by surprise as it has. So yeah, so that's the opening part of Yukikaze. It opens with a bang. It has a bit of a goofy thing, and there's some existential quandaries occurring. Um, One of the ways I would kind of describe Chohei Kambayashi's Yukikaze novels is sort of like, and we'll really get into this in the second volume, it's sort of like if Philip K. Dick was like a military otaku and like had a lot of detailed knowledge, like encyclopedic knowledge of aircraft warfare in modern era, um, and slapped those two things together. We're going to get into some really, really weird places in throughout this series. I want so badly for the third volume to be translated, and I think there's a fourth now. So badly because like good luck Yukikaze has such incredible implications towards the midpoint and end of that, where it's just like, where do you even go from here? Nah, you're good. It doesn't delete on these. Well, I can still see them. Don't worry about it. It's a tragedy and it's terrible. And I'd rather know about it this way than learn about it in full color news because that'll I'll just leave at that point. I'll be like, nope, sorry, can't do it. Or I'll just start frothing at the mouth. Catching me like this is the best way to catch me with that sort of thing because I will take it in stride and then freak out later. Um, I'm glad you're liking the book. It's pretty good. I do highly recommend it. It is dense. Like it's a tough read to go through on your own. Reading it aloud is rather more challenging than I thought it would be. But that's okay. Um, because I haven't read it in a while. um, but it's a pretty fascinating work. Definitely like we haven't really gotten into the really interesting stuff. But we've already got a scenario where we've got people who are isolated from the rest of the Earth population fighting a war against an enemy nobody really understands, but they just have to keep going. Um, and they've got a pretty high technology level. They're able to make human replica dolls that pass muster of a nearly blind functionary pretty handily. So that's giving you a sort of idea. Okay, it's near futurish, not totally out there, other than the whole there's a dimensional rift over Antarctica that we're flying through to. Don't ask how we've got satellite coverage over Fairy. I guess we got rockets there and then shot them up. I don't really know. Some of that may or may not get explained. I don't remember. Mostly, it's we'll get there. There's some interesting stuff ahead. Um, so yeah, we'll get through this. Then I would like to do Full Metal Panic, at least the first hardcover collection. I think that's yeah. There's 12 light novels total. I have the hardback collector's editions that came out not too long ago, and those have 3 light novels apiece. And they go quickly. Like we could probably bang through those in
maybe 3 installments each. Um, I'll be totally honest. I came across Yukikaze by pure accident back in. It probably would have been around when it was first published, within a year or two of 2009, when it was first released or translated and released here in the West. Um, it would have been around 2010ish, I would think. Totally on a whim, because when I go into a bookstore, I usually am going in there looking for something specific, and then I'll get something else, at least one or two something elses that are not what I'm looking for, are going to be weird and different, maybe outside of my comfort zone. And sometimes I've found brilliant stuff. Sometimes I've found really bad stuff. An example of the former, brilliant stuff, that's how I found Hyperion. I had no idea that Dan Simmons existed as an author. I had no idea. And I was getting something else entirely. I think it was something by Peter F. Hamilton. I don't remember what, from a used bookstore. And they had a hardcover Hyperion Cantos, which has Hyperion and the Fall of Hyperion. And I got it on a whim. I'm like, this is a big chunky book. It'll be fun to read. And then like you get like 2 chapters into that, and you're like, whoa, where are we going? You get to the end of the original Hyperion, and you're like, whoa, this is rich. And it just, the train doesn't stop from there. An example of the latter, in terms of things that you get on impulse that just aren't good, was, and I don't remember the author's name, but I do remember the book title, Free Chocolate. It was not good. It was a brilliant concept. Earth has made contact with life outside of Earth. There's a thriving galactic community. Earth has something none of the rest of the universe has, and that's chocolate, which is highly addictive, and highly prized. So you've got this brilliant setup, and then it proceeds to squander it all on really, really mediocre, like Latin Mexican soap opera, which is kind of the point, probably, apparently, I guess. But it's like you had this brilliant concept, and it deserved better. It deserved better than this book, which is actually like a quadrilogy or a quintilogy. There's several of them. I have never read beyond the first one because, frankly, I don't want to be bummed out any more than I already would have been. Anyway, I'm glad I've introduced people to something new and different. That's one of the things I like to do. I don't have tremendously niche tastes, I don't feel. But because I mean, there's just so many books out there. But yeah, Hyperion Cantos is great. I am absolutely positively going to get around to reading Endymion, which are the follow-up to novels. Um, it's it's Endymion and Rise of Endymion, I believe, and that's going to, a lot of that deals with some of the stranger holes in Hyperion, while adding a whole lot of new questions and a hell of a lot going on. It's really good. I have my own opinions about some of the things that happen, but it's wild. It's been a while since I've read that one, so I'm going to have to do a reread of that before I get to that. Maybe next year we'll get to that, but we'll see. Thank you. I appreciate that you feel that my voices add good visualization. I think I may have mentioned this before, but if I haven't, and at the risk of repeating myself, I'll do it again. I honestly do different voices mostly for my sake, so that I can keep straight who is doing what and saying what, and what they might be, what position they might be in, to further empathize. That it works for other people delights me. Um, that is a happy, happy circumstance. Um, I try to make sure they're comprehensible. Sometimes I don't succeed. So anyway, for the rest of the week, this Wednesday we will continue reading Permutation City by Greg Egan. And then on Friday we will continue reading through The Dark Forest by Cixin Liu. Things are just now getting underway with The Dark Forest. And with Permutation City, we've got... you'll see. We're getting there. we go places with Permutation City. And it's like it's got a trajectory that's pretty reasonable and not totally out there. It's not like, wow, how did we escalate from here to there? Um, but we are like it's pretty clear when it's like, okay, here's where we're probably going. But then it's like, how do we get there? What happens in between? What are the ramifications of these ideas? And that's kind of the as someone commented last Wednesday, I think it was. It's like Greg Egan, his plots tend to be kind of boring, but his ideas are just so good that it makes up for it in every way. I broadly agree with that, but uh, he's quite capable of plotting very handily, doing real thriller plots. Like Quarantine's plot is phenomenal. Um, so he's kind of a more classic, what I call classic science fiction, where it's more like it's focusing on the idea more than it is necessarily character development, or world building. But he manages to do some character development, but usually not a ton. They're more there just kind of to showcase this is what an average person would be living a life like in these circumstances. Plots wise, he runs the gamut. A lot of the time, it's like, here's these cool ideas. I want to explore these ideas. And basically, no author I've ever read before or since is quite as thorough or in depth with their exploration of the ideas that they present. Um, so it makes them kind of these very fascinating books where it's like I don't really get what's going on, or I'm not necessarily attached to what the characters are doing, but I'm very attached to figuring out more about what's going on. Um, he's Greg Egan kind of he's definitely made strides to fuse having a nice narrative with having a bold ideas, crazy ideas that nobody else is even coming close to touching. Dichronauts. Dichronauts is so bonkers. Like, it is very difficult for me to explain how bonkers Dichronauts is as a book, just from a world building and description perspective. Like, people are living in a, oh god, it's so weird. It's so weird. And you don't know how weird it is unless you've read about it before, or like a while in where it's like, wait a minute, we're just going to matter of factly say you can't rotate left or right without dire consequences. Wait, why? And it's like explanations will be forthcoming probably. And it's like, oh, they live in a radically different world than we do, but they're just people and they do just people things, as much as just people things can be done in such a world where the laws are very different. And when I say people, I don't mean humans. A human being could not survive in these conditions. We're literally not built to function in a universe like that with those laws of physics. But they're people. They think. They do things. They have motivations. They want to do stuff. They have things they want to do. They have things they need to live. That sort of thing. People. Anyway, with that, I'm going to scooch. Thanks to everyone who tuned in. As always, now that it's been corrected in my scream description, my stream description, I do stream on every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, crises permitting, life permitting, at about 12 noon U.S. East Coast time, which is Eastern Standard Time or Eastern Daily Time, and usually UTC -5, I think. Let me double check that. Time zone, time and date. There we go. Yes, Eastern Standard. What are you in UTC? UTC, where are you? Come on. Yeah, UTC -5. Very good. I knew it was one of those. But once I looked for something in UTC -5, it was off by an hour. And I may have just done very bad math, which is entirely possible. Anyway, you still see Saturday? You've got to be freaking kidding. Is this on the individual videos stream description? Or is that on the, because I fixed this, or is that on the YouTube channel itself? Because I might have fixed one and not the other. It's definitely showing for the video stream description that it should be Friday. Let me, yeah, okay, so on the channel it's showing the wrong thing. I'll edit that. I apologize. Smart. Schmart. Okay, I'll fix that. In fact, I'll fix that right now. How do I edit that? Dashboard, maybe? Oh, not that one. Definitely not that one. Ah, here we go. I thought I fixed that a while ago, but I might have changed it at some point. I don't know. Jesus, that if that's what that says now, that's years. I will have had to have fixed that. Okay, here we go. Where are you? Channel. Advanced settings, maybe? No, definitely not. Move channel to brand account. How about no? There's got to be a way I can edit that. Or there's no edit button. It's not settings. What would that be under? Studio, maybe? Let's try view your channel. No, that's not it. Huh. Notifications? No. That's not gonna do it. Advanced. No, we checked that already. It's just a different way of getting to the same menu. Playback and performance. I know I've changed this before. Status and features, maybe? Here we go. General? No. Community. Agreements, permissions, defaults. Oh, well, I could do that, but that's not going to help me now. Huh. I know that's changeable, obviously, because I've changed it. And it must have been at that time that I changed it to say what I said. It says, but oops. Huh. Tell you what, I will figure this out in their god-awful arcane interface, which is not designed for my ease of use. I have strong opinions. Let's see. No, that's just youtube.com. That doesn't help me. Okay. Customization. Let's try that. There we go. That took way too long. So now you all know. Oh, that doesn't have a space there. There we go. Not that it's probably going to display that properly anyway. Anyway, how do I save? Do I have to hit publish? Let's try hitting publish. Haha. Okay, let's check this one more once. Hey, did that do it? Oh God, no. Yeah, Google settings are just no, no, uh, no. I'm getting too old to go between different platforms either. Yeah, okay, no, that's better. Yeah, UTC -5. Wednesday, Friday. Perfect. Okay, so I fixed that. Oops. I will endeavor at some point early next year to try to go through videos and see if I can unscrew that and fix that for as many as I can. But I think people will just have to accept that it's fixed now and going forward. Just just deal with that. Anyway, user interface design is a lost art. Um, and I don't say that merely from the perspective that, oh, I'm old and dislike change, or getting old and dislike change. I am. Those are both true things. But it's above and beyond that. Modern interface design seems to be a dying art where nobody really understands what works. And it's like, oh, how about having options that are useful be available to you as opposed to they're buried between three different menus? Okay. Um, touchscreen interfaces. No. It's okay. You can kick off. It's showing it has changed for me. I'll wrap it up anyway. I've got nothing really intelligent to say beyond that at this point. Anyway, so yeah, Wednesday will probably be low energy anyway. Wednesday, I've got a lot going on. Tuesday, it's this time of year is it's a mess. If I'm being honest. Oh, antisocial frag. That's not really so much the problem. It's just like my work schedule kicks up. Oh, here we go. Much better. We can do a solid 50-page chunk. And that will get us to chapter 14 of Permutation City when we get there. For Dark Forest, I will have to figure something out because it's not split into chapters. It's got 3 acts, so to speak. I thought I found something that was going to be less ambitious than that. Oh, I see what I did. I don't like that I did it that way. Okay, I have a spare bookmark attached to this thing. Anyway, I will figure stuff out for that. That's not today Frag's problem. That's some other time Frag's problem. Anyway, after we finish Yukikaze, I will do, unless something really catches my attention and I have to do it, have to do something else. We will do Full Metal Panic by I was looking at his name for an hour. Shoji Gato. There we go. Um, we get there eventually. We will get to that after Yukikaze, and it's a romp. It's somewhat more intelligent than it comes across as, which will at least start revealing itself eventually. But mostly it's kind of a goofy, dumb rom-com with all the typical Japanese tropisms associated with such. It's fairly corny until it's not. It works better than you'd think. It works better than I would think. It's definitely not really my traditional comfort zone. But anyway, we're going to call it there. Ooh, somebody has some nice models of. Oh, that's not the Super Sylph, though. That's something else. Um, but it's Yukikaze adjacent. I might have to grab a couple of those. Anyway, I will see you all later. Stay safe, especially if you're in Madison, Wisconsin. Stay sane, although it's probably too late for that. Stay sane and be decent to each other. Please. School shootings are not advancing that very effectively. Thank you. Any other intelligent things to say? I don't know. I'm trying to remember if there was a book coming out that I cared about. Right now, I have enough of a backlog that I've just been kind of like, I'm not going to worry about that. At some point, I did get through. What am I reading through now? I'm still reading through The Nightland by William Hope Hodgson. I want to say it was either a cookie or it was somebody who asked for that to be done. I really should write down who asks for these. Um, I will. I have to finish reading through that before I can even get to it. Let's tentatively plan for that as a Halloween spectacular. It'll take a while to get through. That thing is chunkier than I thought it would be. It's fairly dense read too, because of the particular style of prose that Hodgson decided to go with, um, which will either drive you completely bonkers or you'll be totally okay with it. I don't think there's a middle ground. Let's see. I still have to get. Once I'm done that, I plan on reading through Street Lethal by Stephen Barnes, so that I can enjoy that. There was something with crabs in it that I wanted to do. Oh, what is this called? It's this goofy, goofy, goofy horror book series about killer crabs. Um, that I really want to get around to. Crabs, there it is, by Guy N. Smith. Night of the Crabs. Killer crabs. The origin of the crabs. Crabs on the rampage. Crabs moon. Crabs, the human sacrifice. Killer crabs, the return. The charnel caves. And so on. And I really want to get around to those because I think they would be fun. There's one about like killer cricket aliens from the center of the earth by I think that's by Dietz that I want to get around to reading as well. Um, and there's a book I've been meaning to get around to by someone else, someone more famous, and I can't remember who it was. If I can't remember it now, it must not be important. Anyway, that's me. I'm done. See you all later. Stay safe. Stay safe. Oh, we did that already. Be decent to each other. Okay, very good. We're done. Toodaloo. Bye until next time. Also, look forward on the 25th to a